If one day you find a woman you love, talk to me about it. I really hate being betrayed.
Lyria spoke sincerely. The experience of being betrayed by someone she loved had withered her soul. She didn't want to experience that again for the second time.
I'm the same as you. I hate being betrayed too. However, I will never allow you to get close to any man other than me, and the same goes for me. Only you are allowed to touch my body. Only you are allowed to enter my life.
Lyria had heard enough of Axelsev's sweet words. The woman tiptoed slightly and kissed Axelsev's lips again. A small smile appeared on Axelsev's face. He loved it when his little rabbit took the initiative to kiss him. Axelsev carried Lyria, taking his wife to the bed, and then kissed her again. After satisfyingly plundering Lyria's lips, Axelsev's lips moved to her graceful neck and began sucking and leaving marks of possession. Both of Axelsev's hands unfastened Lyria's clothing until all that was left were her panties and bra. Axelsev loved the sight before him. It was the most beautiful view he had ever seen in his life. The man's hands unfastened Lyria's bra and began touching her breasts, squeezing them like his favorite toys. Moans escaped Lyria's mouth as Axelsev's fingers played with her nipples, sending electric sensations throughout her body. Axelsev withdrew his hand, replacing it with his mouth. His tongue began to caress the peaks of Lyria's breasts before sucking and nibbling them with passion. Lyria's moans grew louder, and she moved her legs restlessly. Her lower body began to pulse. Axelsev's hands moved downwards, teasingly playing with Lyria's already wetness. Her body responded very favorably to his touch. Axelsev's hot tongue continued to explore Lyria's body as he removed her pants and discarded them on the floor. Lyria felt embarrassed as Axelsev's eyes roamed over her provocatively.
You're truly beautiful, my wife.
Axelsev's voice sounded heavy. The next moment, he began ravishing Lyria's body again. He hastily unbuttoned his white shirt and then moved on to his belt and pants. Both of Axelsev's hands gripped Lyria's legs, and then he started to pleasure his wife. Sounds of moans and cries filled the room as sweat covered Lyria and Axelsev's bodies. The room bore witness to how their bodies intertwined as one. When they finished, the day had turned to evening, and they both finally stopped. Lyria fell asleep on the bed, exhausted. She didn't even bother to put on her clothes. Axelsev covered Lyria's body and then gazed at her beautiful face.
Oh, even in sleep, you're still so tempting, Lyria.
Axelsev's index finger traced the contour of Lyria's lovely jawline. He had seen so many beautiful women, but in his eyes, none were more beautiful than Lyria. Lyria shifted to find comfort. She clung to Axelsev's waist like an octopus. She rested her face on his chest, feeling incredibly comfortable. Lyria drifted into a deeper slumber. It had been a long time since she slept without any burdens like this. Initially, Axelsev wasn't sleepy, but eventually, he also dozed off next to Lyria. Lyria woke up when her stomach felt very hungry. She opened her eyes and was surprised to see Axelsev's bare chest in front of her. Then she realized the somewhat embarrassing position they were in. She clung tightly to Axelsev. Feeling embarrassed, Lyria slowly removed her hands from Axelsev's body, but her movement woke him up.
You're awake?
Axelsev exclaimed in a deep voice.
Yes.
You hungry?
Axelsev remembered that they skipped lunch, and when he looked at the clock, it was already past dinner time. Lyria nodded her head.
All right, wait here. I'll ask Peter to prepare your dinner.
Yes.
Axelsev got off the bed, putting on his clothes again. Lyria blushed, realizing that Axelsev had been naked when they slept. After Axelsev left, Lyria lifted the blanket. She saw her body covered in traces of Axelsev's possession. The man was truly wild. Feeling her body sticky, Lyria got out of bed. She felt sore in the lower part of her body. No wonder earlier she and Axelsev were very enthusiastic. Taking slow steps, Lyria finally reached the bathroom. The room filled with water of the appropriate temperature as she filled the bathtub. After it was enough, she stepped inside.
So comfortable.
Lyria sighed in relief. Lyria didn't stay in the bathtub for too long. She had to hurry because her stomach was very hungry. When Lyria reached the dressing room, which was twice the size of her bedroom, she was astonished. The room looked more like a clothing store. In the middle, there was a glass display filled with branded watches and exquisite jewelry. On the wall-attached cabinets, there were rows of bags and shoes designed by famous designers. They were all limited editions. For Lyria, who worked in the fashion world, she knew that the prices of these clothes were more expensive than the cars she often drove to work. From the bags and shoes, Lyria looked at the clothes. Whether they were lingerie, casual dresses, or party gowns, they were all limited editions. Lyria was taken aback. She never thought she would wear such expensive clothes. Her husband was truly generous. He spent his money to buy her necessities with the best and most beautiful quality. Thinking of this, Lyria felt flattered. Axelsev treated her well. At least he was very attentive to her needs.
Our mom will be transferred to a hospital in the city center. I've already spoken with the head of the hospital where Mom is currently being treated about it.
Axelsev looked at his wife attentively. Now that he was married to Lyria, her mother was also his mother. Lyria received another surprise.
Thank you.
She had no words to express her gratitude to Axelsev.
There's no need to thank me. I'm just doing what I should as a husband and son-in-law.
Lyria felt deeply touched. Perhaps it was too early to say, but she knew she had made the right decision to marry Axelsev. Now, she truly had someone she could rely on, someone who had become a part of her family.
Why are you staring at me like that? Am I so handsome?
Axelsev teased Lyria with a charming smile.
Very confident.
Lyria retorted, giving Axelsev a playful smirk. Axelsev chuckled.
You think I'm not handsome?
My husband is the most handsome in the world.
Lyria said sweetly. Normally, she would say her father was the most handsome, but now that her father was no longer with him, she gave that honor to Axelsev.
You have such a sweet mouth. I really want to kiss you right now.
Pervert.
Axelsev laughed again, this time even louder.
There's nothing wrong with kissing my own wife, darling.
Lyria shivered as she heard Axelsev calling her so intimately.
Can I go back to my grandmother's residence for the next week?
Lyria asked, shifting the conversation back to seriousness.
Aren't you comfortable staying in this mansion?
It's not that.
Lyria quickly replied, not wanting Axelsev to misunderstand.
I just want to deal with my grandmother's family first, before leaving.
Yeah, why not handle it?
No need. I'll take care of it myself.
Lyria had a plan. She would stay at her grandmother's house as if she followed her grandmother's will to marry a mentally handicapped man chosen by her grandmother. Then, on the day of the wedding, she would leave and let the marriage fail, causing chaos for her grandmother's family and ruining their plans. Her grandmother wanted to use her as a tool to secure their family business. So Lyria wanted to see how they would cope when the marriage didn't happen and they couldn't exploit her anymore.
All right, do as you wish, but be careful not to get hurt.
I understand.
Axelsev would let his wife show her fangs, but he wouldn't just stand by if she got hurt. After having dinner together, Axelsev and Lyria returned to their room. Axelsev pulled Lyria into his embrace.
Sleep well.
Yes.
Hey, good night, my wife.
Good night.
Lyria still hadn't fully accustomed herself to calling Axelsev husband, considering they were just two strangers who had met only 3 times before getting married without much acquaintance. Lyria wanted to slowly develop her feelings for Axelsev. He had helped her break free from her grandmother's control and had also given her a home to take refuge in. The next morning, Lyria went to the hospital to see her mother's transfer. The head of the hospital personally handled the matter to ensure everything went smoothly. Before that, Lyria had asked Axelsev to instruct the hospital to keep her mother's transfer a secret until the scheduled wedding day arrived. Today, Lyria took another day off. and no one dared to protest because it was Axelsev who directly issued the order to Lyria's manager.
Aren't you working?
Lyria asked Axelsev, who had been accompanying her since earlier.
I don't have anything important, so I can accompany you here.
If Sylvian heard Axelsev's words, he might have coughed up blood. Clearly, to be with Lyria today, Axelsev had canceled several important schedules. It seemed that, for his superiors, Lyria had become more important than work now. Lyria looked at Axelsev carefully.
Thank you for all your help.
Darling, instead of saying thank you, how about showing it with actions?
Axelsev said softly, his gaze completely different from usual. Full of warmth, he then pressed Lyria against the wall and began to kiss his alluring wife. Lyria didn't expect Axelsev to kiss her. She tried to push her husband's chest away, but Axelsev, who had already tasted the sweetness of Lyria's lips, was reluctant to let go. After a while, Axelsev finally released Lyria.
I really like the taste of your sweet lips, darling.
You.
Lyria grumbled in annoyance. She was actually embarrassed. It was the first time she had kissed with her mother only a few steps away. True, her mother was in a vegetative state and wouldn't know what they were doing. But Lyria still felt it was inappropriate. Axelsev chuckled.
It's all right. I don't mind showing our affection in front of others.
He kissed Lyria again, this time longer than before. As Axelsev pulled away, Lyria's lips were slightly swollen and redder than usual.
Axel, how am I going to face other people now?
Lyria complained, holding her lips. Today, she had already worn a high-collar outfit to cover the hickey on her neck that Axelsev had left.
You can wear a mask.
Lyria glared at Axelsev, annoyed.
I won't let you kiss my lips again.
Building, that's too cruel.
Lyria quickly moved away from Axelsev. He might try to kiss her again if she didn't keep her distance.
Axel laughed again.
He truly enjoyed interacting with his wife. His once monotonous life was now full of waves, and his once colorless life was now filled with colors.
Our mom will be transferred to a hospital in the city center. I've already spoken with the head of the hospital where mom is currently being treated about it.
Axelsev looked at his wife attentively. Now that he was married to Lyria, her mother was also his mother. Lyria received another surprise.
Thank you.
She had no words to express her gratitude to Axelsev.
There's no need to thank me. I'm just doing what I should as a husband and son-in-law.
Lyria felt deeply touched. Perhaps it was too early to say, but she knew she had made the right decision to marry Axelsev. Now, she truly had someone she could rely on, someone who had become a part of her family.
Why are you staring at me like that? Am I so handsome?
Axelsev teased Lyria with a charming smile.
Very confident.
Lyria retorted, giving Axelsev a playful smirk. Axelsev chuckled.
You think I'm not handsome?
My husband is the most handsome in the world.
Lyria said sweetly. Normally, she would say her father was the most handsome, but now that her father was no longer with him, she gave that honor to Axelsev.
You have such a sweet mouth. I really want to kiss you right now.
Pervert.
Axelsev laughed again, this time even louder.
There's nothing wrong with kissing my own wife, darling.
Lyria shivered as she heard Axelsev calling her so intimately.
Can I go back to my grandmother's residence for the next week?
Lyria asked, shifting the conversation back to seriousness.
Aren't you comfortable staying in this mansion?
It's not that.
Lyria quickly replied, not wanting Axelsev to misunderstand.
I just want to deal with my grandmother's family first, before leaving.
Yeah, why not handle it?
No need. I'll take care of it myself.
Lyria had a plan. She would stay at her grandmother's house as if she followed her grandmother's will to marry a mentally handicapped man chosen by her grandmother. Then, on the day of the wedding, she would leave and let the marriage fail, causing chaos for her grandmother's family and ruining their plans. Her grandmother wanted to use her as a tool to secure their family business. So Lyria wanted to see how they would cope when the marriage didn't happen and they couldn't exploit her anymore.
All right, do as you wish, but be careful not to get hurt.
I understand.
Axelsev would let his wife show her fangs, but he wouldn't just stand by if she got hurt. After having dinner together, Axelsev and Lyria returned to their room. Axelsev pulled Lyria into his embrace.
Sleep well.
Yes.
Hey, good night, my wife.
Good night.
Lyria still hadn't fully accustomed herself to calling Axel Sev husband, considering they were just two strangers who had met only 3 times before getting married without much acquaintance. Lyria wanted to slowly develop her feelings for Axel Sev. He had helped her break free from her grandmother's control and had also given her a home to take refuge in. The next morning, Lyria went to the hospital to see her mother's transfer. The head of the hospital personally handled the matter to ensure everything went smoothly. Before that, Lyria had asked Axel Sev to instruct the hospital to keep her mother's transfer a secret until the scheduled wedding day arrived. Today, Lyria took another day off, and no one dared to protest because it was Axel Sev who directly issued the order to Lyria's manager.
Aren't you working?
Lyria asked Axel Sev, who had been accompanying her since earlier.
I don't have anything important, so I can accompany you here.
If Sylvian heard Axel Sev's words, he might have coughed up blood. Clearly, to be with Lyria today, Axel Sev had canceled several important schedules. It seemed that, for his superiors, Lyria had become more important than work now. Lyria looked at Axel Sev carefully.
Thank you for all your help.
Darling, instead of saying thank you, how about showing it with actions?
Axel Sev said softly, his gaze completely different from usual, full of warmth. He then pressed Lyria against the wall and began to kiss his alluring wife. Lyria didn't expect Axel Sev to kiss her. She tried to push her husband's chest away, but Axel Sev, who had already tasted the sweetness of Lyria's lips, was reluctant to let go. After a while, Axel Sev finally released Lyria.
I really like the taste of your sweet lips, darling.
You.
Lyria grumbled in annoyance. She was actually embarrassed. It was the first time she had kissed with her mother only a few steps away. True, her mother was in a vegetative state and wouldn't know what they were doing, but Lyria still felt it was inappropriate. Axel Sev chuckled.
It's all right. I don't mind showing our affection in front of others.
He kissed Lyria again, this time longer than before. As Axel Sev pulled away, Lyria's lips were slightly swollen and redder than usual.
Axel, how am I going to face other people now?
Lyria complained, holding her lips. Today, she had already worn a high-collar outfit to cover the hickey on her neck that Axel Sev had left.
You can wear a mask.
Lyria glared at Axel Sev, annoyed.
I won't let you kiss my lips again.
That's too cruel.
Lyria quickly moved away from Axel Sev. He might try to kiss her again if she didn't keep her distance.
Axel laughed again.
He truly enjoyed interacting with his wife. His once monotonous life was now full of waves, and his once colorless life was now filled with colors. This morning, Lyria didn't go to work again. She didn't submit a resignation letter, but asked for help from Axel Sev once more. She needed 5 days off until the wedding day arrived. At 10 in the morning, Lyria went with Rebecca, George's mother. The woman was dressed lavishly, a nouveau riche who wanted to display her wealth.
Choose the gown you want,
Rebecca commanded, taking Lyria to an expensive boutique with many beautiful wedding dresses.
Forget it. Let me choose. Your taste is surely low. It will disgrace the Luther family.
Rebecca spoke again. In less than 24 hours with Lyria, she had already belittled her significantly. Rebecca spotted a beautiful gown.
Wear that one.
Lyria felt that Rebecca truly belonged in the same social circle as her grandmother and aunt. They were all arrogant and looked down on others. To ensure everything went smoothly, Lyria tried on the gown selected by Rebecca. She was assisted by the shop attendants in putting on the rather heavy dress. Now, Lyria stood in front of a very tall mirror, her whole body visible in the white wedding dress. Lyria found it ironic. She had always wanted to wear a gown like this on her wedding day with Raisin. But sadly, that dream was shattered when Raisin unilaterally broke off their engagement. Lyria no longer had any feelings left for Raisin. She only regretted her futile fantasies about him. Fortunately, she now had a husband who was infinitely better than Raisin. God had prepared a truly perfect man for her. Her phone rang, and she answered the call from her husband.
What are you doing now?
Axelsev always wanted to know what Lyria was up to. He would be very happy if he could be with her at all times.
Trying on wedding dresses.
My wife is quite daring. She married me, but is trying on wedding dresses for another man.
You know it's not like that, Axel.
I'm very jealous now.
You're being childish.
Send me a photo of you in the wedding dress.
Okay,
Lyria ended the call and asked one of the shop attendants to take a photo for her.
thank you.
Lyria said to the attendant, and she sent the photo to Axelsev. Axelsev called Lyria again.
You look stunning. I want to take you home now. It would be great if we held the wedding ceremony very soon.
Don't be ridiculous. Let's talk about it later.
Okay, never think about being a bride for another man. I will definitely kill that man.
Axelsev was truly possessive. Lyria smiled softly, her heart warmed by Axelsev's words.
I won't.
Goodbye, I miss you so much.
Goodbye, I miss you too.
Lyria ended the call and saw two shop attendants looking at her strangely. She walked out of the dressing room. Rebecca, who was reading a magazine, shifted her gaze to Lyria.
The beautiful dress really makes an ugly duckling look good.
Lyria gave Rebecca a flat look. Ugly duckling. Who was blind? She clearly had a beautiful face. Lyria thought maybe Rebecca needed to go to the hospital for an eye checkup.
I'll buy the dress.
Rebecca handed over her card to pay for the gown.
Let's go look at jewelry. I don't want people to think the Luther family is poor because the bride doesn't wear decent jewelry.
Okay, madam.
Lyria didn't want to argue with Rebecca. She just followed the woman.
You're very lucky that I chose you to be my son's companion. You truly are a Cinderella turned into a beautiful princess.
Lyria nearly spat blood at Rebecca's words. Lucky. How could she be lucky when she was going to live with a mentally disabled man for the rest of her life? Lyria really didn't understand how Rebecca's mind worked. Was life really just about enjoying wealth?
What's with that expression? Aren't you happy to be a part of the Luther family?
Rebecca's face grew even less friendly.
Madam Rebecca, do you think I really want this marriage? If it weren't for my grandmother and aunt threatening me, do you think I would willingly spend my entire life with your son? Lyria couldn't contain herself.
Lyria, you're really bold. Do you think there's any man who would want you? You should be grateful that I chose you to be my son's precious companion.
Madam, if your son is so precious, you should take care of him for a lifetime and not let him get married.
Lyria truly didn't hate someone who was mentally disabled, but being forced to marry someone like that was something she would never accept. She genuinely apologized to George Luther. She had no intention of demeaning him.
You?
Rebecca's face darkened.
I will tell your grandmother and aunts about your insolent behavior. Lyria, let's see how they will discipline you.
With that, Rebecca stormed off, leaving Lyria frustrated. Lyria sighed and left the city's largest shopping center. Her phone rang.
Yes, Estelle.
Where are you now? I went to your office, but you weren't there.
When did you come back? Why didn't you inform me?
I wanted to surprise you. Tell me where you are. Let's have lunch together.
I'm at the city's shopping center now.
Great. I'll head there. Let's have lunch at the Red Moon restaurant.
Okay, I'll go to the restaurant and wait for you.
I'll be there in 15 minutes.
All right, drive safely.
Yes, my dear.
The call ended. Lyria headed to the restaurant where her friend Estelle was waiting.
Lyria?
Lyria felt nauseated. In her grandmother's mansion, she had to encounter Kaitlin, and now, in this restaurant, she had to meet this snake-like woman again. Truly annoying. Beside Kaitlin was Tamara, Kaitlin's childhood friend and one of those who had often treated Lyria poorly. They had attended the same school from elementary to high school, and Lyria was fed up with Kaitlin and Tamara's bullying and drama.
What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be with Aunt Rebecca?
Kaitlin looked at Lyria as if she cared.
Who's Aunt Rebecca?
The lady from the Luther family. Lyria is going to marry George Luther, the only son of the Luther family.
You mean that mentally disabled George Luther?
Yes, Yes.
Lyria, you're truly something.
Tamara looked at Lyria in awe.
To enter a wealthy family, you don't even hesitate to marry a mentally disabled man.
Lyria gave Tamara a disdainful look. This woman would twist facts to make her look like a gold digger who just wanted a luxurious life.
Tamara, don't speak ill of my sister.
She was even willing to be a second wife to a wealthy old man, but after that marriage failed, she chose to marry a mentally disabled man. Your sister is truly desperate to live in luxury.
Each word Tamara uttered was venomous and malicious. Some of the restaurant patrons around them were now looking at Lyria with disapproving glares.
Are you done talking?
Lyria retorted indifferently. She was used to these games by these two women. She had never caused a scene during her father's lifetime because she didn't want to make her father more disliked by her grandmother. But Caitlin's treatment towards her had become increasingly unbearable.
Look at how arrogant this cheap woman is.
Tamara sneered at Lyria.
Tamara, who do you think is cheaper between me and Caitlin? She's my sister, yet she seduced my fiance by spreading her legs wide open. And then, with no guilt, she stole my fiance. Isn't Caitlin much more disgusting than me?
Lyria stared at Caitlin sardonically. Caitlin's face froze. How dare Lyria reveal such a thing in a public place?
Lyria, don't blame Caitlin if you couldn't keep your fiancé. What's wrong with Caitlin being with Razin? The one Raisin loved was Caitlin, not you.
Tamara barked fiercely. Lyria chuckled.
See, you can't even distinguish right from wrong, but you dare to talk so much about me.
What I said is the truth.
Caitlin, you know more than anyone about everything. Don't you want to fix it, or should I do it myself?
Lyria, don't use me to clear your name. You may be my sister, but I won't accept being made a scapegoat like this.
Caitlin exclaimed, refusing to fix Lyria's tarnished image.
Fine, then let me make it clear. The Chaster family company is currently facing trouble, and to help them get out of it, Grandma and Mom used me as a bargaining chip. First, they wanted to marry me off to a married man. They didn't care if he was cruel or not. All they knew was to trade me for some benefit. The man was Mr. Ramos, who was recently arrested by the police for various cases, from sexual harassment to bribery and tax issues. After failing to marry me off to that dreadful old man, Grandma and Mom wanted to marry me to the heir of the Luther family, who is mentally disabled, and if I refuse, my mother's medical expenses will be stopped.
Shut your mouth, Lyria. Never dare to slander Grandma and Mom. You're truly wicked to your own family.
Lyria gave a small smile.
Slander. Do you want me to prove whether it's slander or not?
She took out her phone.
I have found the man who will marry you. He is the son of the Luther family. You will marry him in a week.
Mallory's voice came from the phone. Caitlin's face turned pale. Lyria had recorded their conversation from a few days ago.
Lyria, do you know what George Luther is like?
This time, it was Caitlin's voice. Some people nearby turned to look at Caitlin in horror.
He's mentally disabled, and it's a perfect match for you.
Even if dogs could give you what you want, you would definitely marry me off to a dog.
Turn it off, Lyria.
Caitlin tried to snatch Lyria's phone, but Lyria dodged.
You should be thankful, Lyria. By marrying George, you'll live a luxurious life.
Thankful. Yes, indeed, you're so generous.
The recording ended with Lyria's sarcastic voice.
Caitlin, tell me, do you need another recording to prove that I'm not slandering Grandma and Mom?
Lyria challenged Caitlin.
Lyria, you must have doctored that recording.
Well, then we can have it examined to see if I forged it or not. I don't mind taking this matter further, Caitlin.
Lyria, you'll regret this.
Caitlin's true face emerged. There was no warmth of sisterly love anymore.
Tamara, I believe you owe me an apology.
Lyria turned to Tamara. Tamara wasn't willing to apologize to Lyria. She considered herself above Lyria's status.
That's right, miss. You should apologize for slandering this young lady.
A restaurant patron spoke up. Other listeners around agreed with the statement. Tamara felt extremely irritated.
Caitlin, let's go eat somewhere else.
Tamara, watch your words next time. I might sue you for defaming me.
Lyria looked at Tamara coldly.
Ah, like a woman like you would dare to sue me. You're just the daughter of a whore.
Lyria's hand flew to Tamara's face. She couldn't stand when her mother was insulted like that.
Tamara, I'll rip your mouth open if you dare insult my mother again.
Lyria said firmly, her face now looking fierce.
You bitch. How dare you slap me?
Tamara was about to go berserk, but Estelle arrived in time. She pulled Tamara away, causing her to fall to the floor.
Huh, these two bitches. Aren't you satisfied with disturbing Lyria?
Estelle exclaimed angrily.
Estelle, watch your language.
What? Did I say anything wrong? What should I call you if not a bitch? You shamelessly stole your own cousin's fiancé? Should I explain how you seduced Rosin? Lyria has recordings of your past conversations, Caitlin. Your reputation hasn't been destroyed until now because Lyria didn't want to ruin the Schaester family name?
Caitlin looked at Lyria in disbelief, staring at her. Did that damned woman record all their conversations? Caitlin knew that she would truly be ruined if Lyria played those recordings. Caitlin grabbed Tamara's arm.
Let's get out of here.
Both of them were embarrassed, unable to bear the disapproving looks from some of the patrons present.
These two women are truly despicable. It seems like they left home without bringing their brains.
Estelle said with disgust. She then turned to Lyria.
Are you okay, Lyria?
My hand is just a little sore.
Lyria had slapped Tamara's face quite hard, so naturally it hurt.
I feel sorry for your hand. However, you should have slapped her twice. She dares to slander you like that. Luckily, you're clever enough to record every conversation. Otherwise, your name would have been tarnished again by those two snakes.
Have you been here for long?
True, it's been quite a while. I knew you were hiding something from me.
Let's sit down first. I'll tell you the details.
Yes, I feel a bit nauseous because of Caitlin and Tamara.
Estelle began to walk towards a table with Lyria. Now people were no longer looking at Lyria disdainfully. She had managed to turn the situation around.
So, tell me what you've been hiding from me?
I didn't mean to hide it from you. I just didn't want to burden you. You have important work to take care of.
Lyria said honestly. The last thing she wanted was to be a burden to someone else. Estelle understood, but she was still upset. She wanted Lyria to share the burden with her so that her friend wouldn't be so overwhelmed. Lyria's life had been difficult since her father's death.
You're not allowed to keep secrets from me next time.
I promise.
No need to tell me again. I heard it earlier. I might get high blood pressure if you tell me again. Your grandmother and mother have truly lost their minds. Lyria, are you sure your father is really their child? I think your grandmother would be better off as a stepmother. She's truly terrible and heartless.
Estelle said angrily. Lyria gave a bitter smile.
Unfortunately, my father is really her son.
Lyria, I don't think there's a mother worse than your grandmother. She has truly failed to be a mother.
Estelle had been friends with Lyria since they were children, and she had witnessed firsthand Mallory's hatred towards Lyria, her father and her mother. The woman's attitude was in stark contrast to how she treated Caitlin and her parents. Lyria agreed with that sentiment. Her grandmother had indeed failed to be a mother to her father.
Lyria, are you really going to marry the mentally disabled man Caitlin mentioned earlier?
I was supposed to marry him, but I have another option.
Another option? What do you mean?
A day before I was supposed to marry Mr. Ramos, I went to a nightclub and slept with a man who I thought was a gigolo. I refused to give my virginity to Mr. Ramos. So I made that decision, and that decision led me to accept Leander, the man I thought was a gigolo. He offered to marry me, and I accepted. By marrying Axel Sev, I can free myself from my grandmother's shackles, and he also finances my mother's treatment.
Estelle listened attentively without interrupting Lyria, although she was very surprised by the fact that her friend had married a stranger she met at a nightclub. However, wait, Axel Sev Leander, Was that the same man she was thinking of right now?
Lyria, is your husband the heir of the Leander family?
Yes.
Wow.
Estelle couldn't say anything else. She was amazed.
You've got quite the catch, Lyria. You truly deserve an incredible man like him.
Lyria smiled softly. Whenever she thought of Axelsev, her mood improved, even though she had only known him for a few days.
Lyria, you should show off your husband immediately. I'm sure Caitlin will have a heart attack when she finds out you've got a husband who's far better than Raisin.
No, I don't want Caitlin to know. That woman is fond of taking what belongs to me.
I'm sure the Leander family heir has good judgment. Lyria, you're demeaning your husband by comparing him to your unfaithful ex-fiancé.
Estelle replied. She had heard enough about Axelsev Leander's greatness in the business world. He was very smart and had good judgment, so he would not be deceived by Caitlin, the drama queen. What Estelle said was indeed true. She also had no intention of comparing Axelsev to Razin. She knew very well that Axelsev would never be as foolish as Raisin, who was deceived by Caitlin. She just didn't want Caitlin to get close to Axelsev and tarnish him with her dirty tricks.
However, it's also okay if you don't want to show him off. You'll become the #1 enemy of thousands of women if they know you're married to Axelsev, who is more famous than the model on magazine covers. You know, women's jealousy is terrifying. It's like venomous snakes that will poison you to death.
Lyria had experienced such jealousy when she was with Raisin, so she could imagine how frightening it would be when people found out she had married Axelsev Leander.
I'll just keep it a secret for now until the situation calms down. By the way, how are you handling the marriage with the Luther family's son? I just pretended to go along with my grandmother's wishes. When the wedding day comes, I won't show up. They want to save the company, but I want to ruin it.
Lyria, I prefer you this way.
Estelle supported Lyria's actions.
When you're oppressed, you have to retaliate harder. What your grandmother and mother did went beyond the limit.
I know. I won't stay silent from now on. Besides, I have you and Axelsev supporting me.
I'm really happy for you, Lyria. You deserve to be happy.
Estelle looked at her friend with deep emotion.
Thank you, Estelle.
No need to thank me. Don't say things like that again, Estelle said gently.
Lyria was truly lucky to have a friend like Estelle who never left her, even in her darkest times.
Milo Rabbit has become a wildcat now. I am truly proud of her.
Axelsev praised his wife after hearing the report from Sylvian about what happened at the restaurant. Sylvian, who listened to his infatuated boss, was not surprised by the praise. His boss would probably still praise his wife even if she committed a crime. Now, his boss had become Lyria's #1 supporter. If his boss's wife was oppressed, he would surely retaliate multiple times.
That's how the monks, like young lady like the Leander family, should behave. She should be bold and confident. But it's okay if she's a little scared. I'll protect her.
See, what Sylvian said was 100% correct. Regardless of whether his wife was weak or strong, his boss would stand at the forefront to protect her. Meanwhile, at Lyria's grandmother's residence, Lyria was being scolded. Rebecca had complained about Lyria to Mallory and Eugene. The woman complained that Lyria was very insolent and disrespectful.
Mrs. Rebecca, I will definitely teach Lyria a lesson. She will come to you to apologize later.
If my son didn't need a wife, I would never accept such a wild woman like her.
Rebecca scolded Lyria.
Mrs. Rebecca, don't be too angry. Lyria will become a good daughter-in-law in the future,
Eugene said soothingly.
I have other matters to attend to. You must remember to teach Lyria, or I won't give you what you want,
Rebecca threatened.
We will definitely do it, Mrs. Rebecca.
Mallory reassured. In her heart, she cursed Lyria 100 times over. Her useless granddaughter always caused trouble. She was really annoyed now. Rebecca then left. Mallory immediately ordered Eugene to contact Lyria and tell her to come home.
Where are you now? Your grandmother wants you to come home now.
I'll be home soon.
Eugene hung up after hearing Lyria's response.
Lyria, She's really audacious. I'll definitely beat her to death today.
Lyria seems to be really intending to ruin the company.
Eugene added fuel to the fire. The angrier Mallory was with Lyria, the happier he felt. Caitlin entered the living room with an angry face.
Grandmother, mother, that whore humiliated me today.
She began to complain to her grandmother and mother.
What happened?
Caitlin began to tell them what happened at the restaurant. And Mallory and Eugene's faces darkened. The two women really wanted to strangle Lyria to death now. How dare Lyria say such things in public? Moreover, that woman was truly cunning for recording their conversation.
Grandmother, mother, you must get Lyria's phone. She has all those recordings on her phone.
Grandmother will destroy that phone and then beat Lyria. That little wench seems to be tired of living.
A few moments later, Lyria returned. The first thing that greeted her was a vase thrown at her, but Lyria had anticipated it earlier, so she dodged it.
You damn whore! How dare you humiliate Caitlin and say such things about your grandmother and me?
So, Grandmother, do you think I should just stay silent when Tamara and Caitlin slander me? Do you think it's not enough that you've tarnished my name all this time?
You still dare to answer and not kneel immediately. You're truly seeking death.
Mallory rushed towards Lyria, wanting to hit her.
Grandmother, right now, the recording of your cruelty is in the hands of my friend. If I tell her you hurt me, then the recording will spread throughout the upper-class social circle. I'm sure the generous image you've built for years will crumble in an instant.
Mallory became angrier after hearing Lyria's threat. She really wanted to hit Lyria now, but she didn't want her treatment of Lyria to be exposed.
Lyria, you're really audacious. You seem to care very little about your mother.
Eugene immediately took out his phone and contacted the hospital.
Stop Kelly Melford's treatment immediately.
No.
Lyria stopped Eugene. Eugene knew this method would work.
Lyria, you've been acting arrogant these past few days. Do you think we really need you? Caitlin has Raisin, who can help stabilize the company.
Eugene was completely bluffing. They didn't want to seek help from Raisin's family because they didn't want to be seen as taking advantage of Raisin and Caitlin's engagement. They also wanted to show that they could solve the company's problems without help from Raisin's family, so they would have their pride.
Auntie, please don't do that to my mother. I apologize. I was wrong.
Lyria had learned a lot from Caitlin, and after seeing Caitlin's acting for so many years, she had acquired some skills. Mallory was pleased to see that they could still control Lyria.
Kneel now.
Lyria immediately knelt. It was okay for her to look defeated now because later she would come out as the winner.
You must apologize to Caitlin for humiliating her.
Lyria looked at Caitlin.
I apologize, Caitlin.
Caitlin wasn't satisfied with just an apology. She stepped towards Lyria and raised her hand to slap Lyria's face, but Lyria quickly restrained her hand.
I apologize to you, but it doesn't mean you can hurt me, Caitlin.
Mom.
Caitlin complained to her mother.
You can slap her as much as you want.
Eugene said heartlessly.
I'm fine with apologizing and kneeling, but if you want to hit me, then do as you wish. My mother won't blame me if you stop her treatment.
Lyria stared sharply at Eugene. Mallory couldn't bear Lyria's behavior.
Then let you and your mother die together.
The recordings will spread immediately if I get hurt.
Lyria said firmly. Mallory really didn't understand the situation. They had successfully controlled Lyria a while ago, but now they couldn't do anything.
Caitlin, do you want everyone to know what a slut you are? Oh, right, do you want Raisin to know that all this time you slandered me while flirting with so many men? I think he'll dump you if he finds out.
You.
Caitlin gnashed her teeth in anger, but she couldn't do anything to Lyria.
Look at how you treat your own sister. Lyria, you're truly evil.
Lyria laughed mockingly.
If I'm evil, then do you think what Caitlin did to me was kind? Oh, right, I forgot you don't know what's right and wrong. You're even more wicked than Caitlin.
Mallory was so angry that her veins bulged. Her vision darkened and her body weakened.
Kyan, take Grandma to her room. I can't bear to face this little whore anymore.
Lyria, look at what you've done. Grandma is sick because of you.
Lyria, you really don't know how to be grateful.
Eugene helped his daughter take Mallory back to her room. Today, they failed to discipline Lyria, and they were almost angry to death because of Lyria's audacity.
Grandma, Mom, I really want to tear that little whore apart.
Caitlin grumbled when she arrived in her grandmother's room. Mallory leaned on the bed's headboard.
Let's wait until she gets married, and then we'll let the Luther family torture her to death.
Eugene and Caitlin felt unsatisfied. But at the moment, Lyria's threats were too dangerous for them.
Then, what about the recordings, Grandma? Lyria will keep threatening us. She doesn't even seem to care about her mother.
Grandma has another way. She cares a lot about your grandfather. Grandma will ask your grandfather to persuade Lyria.
Grandma is indeed clever.
Caitlin praised her grandmother. Currently, Lyria's grandfather was being treated in the hospital due to the cancer he suffered. The old man's life probably wouldn't last much longer. That's why Mallory took over as the head of the family since her grandfather was hospitalized in the past few months. Lyria went to the hospital after receiving a call from her grandfather's personal assistant.
My granddaughter.
Alex Shyster looked at Lyria with affection.
Grandfather.
Lyria approached her grandfather, who looked thinner than before.
Grandfather has heard that many things have happened at home. Grandfather apologizes for not being able to do anything.
Alex looked at his granddaughter with guilt.
Grandfather, it's not your fault.
Lyria couldn't possibly blame her grandfather. He loved her and her parents very much, but it was true that he could no longer control the Chester family since he was diagnosed with cancer.
Lyria, can grandfather ask something of you? Grandfather's request might disappoint you, but grandfather truly implores you.
What is grandfather's request?
Delete the recordings you have.
Lyria looked at her grandfather for a moment. She knew that her grandfather would not support her against his wife and grandchildren.
I will delete them, grandfather.
However, Lyria still had many other ways. Besides, she knew her grandfather's life wouldn't be long. She didn't want to make him worry too much.
Grandfather knows you're very kind.
Alex didn't want the Chester family to fall apart. At least he wanted to die peacefully with the Chester family's reputation still intact.
Lyria, there's a secret that grandfather wants to tell you. It's about your father.
Alex felt that his condition was worsening, so he wanted to tell Lyria a long-hidden truth. Lyria remained silent, listening to what her grandfather wanted to say.
Your father is not grandfather's son. Do you remember grandfather's late brother?
Yes, I remember grandfather.
He is your father's biological father.
Lyria was shocked to hear that. How could something like that happen?
That's the reason why your grandmother hates your father. Grandfather loved your grandmother very much, but your grandmother liked me. That night, grandfather was drunk, and he raped your grandmother, and that's how your father came into existence.
Alex opened up an old wound that he had kept hidden for so long.
Your grandfather was involved in an accident 1 week after that incident, and he couldn't be saved. 1 month later, your grandfather found out that your grandmother was pregnant with your father. Because your grandfather didn't want your grandmother to have an abortion, he married her out of guilt and responsibility. He also left the woman he loved because of that. Grandfather thought that by marrying your grandmother, she would be happy and could forget the past, but it turned out that he was wrong. Your grandmother hated your father so much because he was the result of an unwanted event. Grandfather is truly sad to see how your grandmother treated your father poorly, and that's why he always felt guilty towards your father. He didn't know anything, but he had to face your grandmother's great hatred. Your father didn't know about this until he passed away. Grandfather didn't want to hurt your father even more, so he asked your grandmother not to tell the truth.
Now everything made sense. It turned out that her grandmother hated her father because he was an unwanted child. But what was her father's fault? He didn't even ask to be born to her grandmother. That woman had no right to treat her father badly. Lyria knew that her grandmother must have suffered greatly because of the rape committed by her own biological grandfather, but it had nothing to do with her father. In Lyria's opinion, it would have been better if her grandmother had chosen to have an abortion back then so that her father wouldn't grow up with an unknown source of hatred. Her father couldn't choose who he was born from and how he came into existence. However, her grandmother had the choice to abort or keep him. And her grandmother chose to keep him because the man she loved was willing to marry her and take responsibility for what his brother had done. Lyria was convinced that her grandmother had used her pregnancy to gain the man she loved. And what Lyria was thinking was true. In reality, Mallory used her pregnancy to make Alex feel guilty and take responsibility for her. Lyria's feelings, which were not so good before, now improved slightly as she saw Axelsev standing next to the car. She walked a little faster to reach his car. It was already getting dark, but Axelsev's captivating aura shone brightly. Axelsev didn't care where he was at the moment. He simply pulled Lyria into his embrace.
I miss you so much.
Lyria tilted her head up, her gaze meeting Axelsev's starry eyes. Her heart warmed. At least she still had this man who could make her feel comfortable and safe.
I missed you too.
A bright smile appeared on Axelsev's face.
Let's go back home.
Yes.
Lyria didn't want to return to her grandmother's mansion tonight. She could make up an excuse to stay at Estelle's residence if her grandmother asked tomorrow. Her grandmother didn't really care whether she came back or not. The best scenario for her grandmother was if Lyria didn't come back, so the woman wouldn't have to see her face. However, after being forced into 2 good marriages according to her grandmother's standards, the woman would order her aunt or the head servant to call Lyria. It was not out of concern. She was afraid that Lyria would run away.
Did something happen today?
Axelsev asked as the car driven by Sylvian started moving. Lyria sighed softly. Today was an absolute tragedy.
A lot of things happened.
And then tell me about it.
It's not something pleasant to hear.
I'm willing to listen.
Lyria finally recounted what happened, from choosing the dress with Rebecca, meeting Kylin and Tamara at the restaurant, then returning home and being scolded by her grandmother and the truth revealed by her grandfather. Axelsev's facial expression hardened. The Cheister family really dared to oppress his wife. Axelsev knew everything that happened outside the Cheister mansion because he had someone keeping an eye on his wife, not including Lyria's visits to the hospital. He only knew that Lyria went there, but he didn't know what was discussed between Lyria and her grandfather. Axelsev had no intention of spying on his wife, but it was to protect her from unwanted situations. No matter how much he loved his wife, he didn't want anything bad to happen to her.
Are you used to giving in like that?
Axelsev looked at his wife gently. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, so he was always respected. And no one could offend his feelings. He would never yield to anyone.
I didn't want to cause trouble for my late father while he was alive, so I always gave in to Caitlin and the others. As for my grandfather, I followed his wishes because of his poor health. I don't know what my grandmother used to make my grandfather request that from me.
After this, never give in to anyone. And you should know that I will always support you. Even if you kill someone, I will clean up the mess for you.
Killing is illegal. I will never do that.
Axelsev took his wife's hand.
Actually, to knowing you are Axel Sevlander's wife. You don't need to bow your head to anyone. Remember to step on anyone who has humiliated you in the past.
Lyria felt deeply moved. She had always held back because of her parents, but now she didn't have to do it anymore.
Lyria, I won't let anyone hurt you.
It was a promise from Axelsev to Lyria. Even himself, he wouldn't hurt her. Lyria had the urge to cry now. She felt so lucky to have someone she could rely on.
Thank you.
Lyria didn't know what else to say. She was just truly grateful to Axelsev for making her feel so at ease. Axelsev gave a small smile.
Show your gratitude in a different way, darling.
Lyria didn't know how to express her gratitude other than with words. Should she buy something for Axelsev?
I will teach you how to show your gratitude in a different way. You have to remember this properly.
After saying that, Axelsev leaned in and kissed Lyria's lips. Axelsev's action was unexpected, and Lyria was surprised at first, but she eventually allowed him to plunder her lips. Axelsev's mischievous hands began to move under the knee-length dress worn by Lyria, causing her smooth thighs to be exposed. Lyria quickly grabbed Axelsev's hand, gently pushing his chest.
Axel, we're in the car.
She didn't want to do it there, especially with Sylvian present.
I'm sorry, darling. I can't control myself when I'm faced with you.
Axel said softly. He immediately turned to Sylvian.
I drive faster.
Very well, sir.